welcome to Africa Watch on the Dr. Mumbi Show. My name is Dr. Mumbi Saraki. How you doing? How's everything going? I pray you're well in all your ways and that you are living your best life. Thanks to everybody who subscribes and comments and shares our videos. We appreciate each and every one of you. Don't forget to like and share and subscribe if you haven't already. Thanks to all my Patreon and PayPal families. You guys are amazing. Thanks for your support. Now, some interesting news coming out of the European Parliament. So as you know, the European Parliament has actually been meeting this week. I think it's their major conference or summit or whatever. And they have actually signed a resolution where they are calling for reparations of Africa. I was like, am I dreaming? Seriously, you guys, at this point, I'm also starting to think, how come all these things are happening? How come everyone is apologizing and whatever? And first of all, we can't need apologies, as my grandmother, as my or grandmother would say. So, but what happened is that the European Parliament overwhelmingly backed a watershed resolution calling for reparations for crimes committed in Africa during European colonialism. Now, 535 members of the European Parliament were actually signed for the resolution. About 44 were absent and 80 signed against, but that's unprecedented. That's a huge number. And so they basically had three major points that they were calling for. Number one, they said that the declassification of colonial archives and the issue of public apologies. Now, I just found out when they said that actually a lot of these former colonial governments have classified their worst atrocities of, the colonial era. So there's certain periods where, the most disturbing periods, that's what they call them, which have not been opened up to the public. So what they were calling for is that these should be made, these should be declassified, they should be made available to the public, and then a public apology should be made. But I'm just like, they did more. So what we know is only what we know, but they did more. Like, how traumatizing is that? So the second thing they said is they urged the EU member states to introduce a series of sweeping reforms aimed at tackling structural racism facing millions of Afro-Europeans. And lastly, they called for nationwide strategies to deal with discrimination in education, health, housing policies, policing, because the same police brutality that's happening in the US is the same thing that's happening in a lot of European countries. It's absolutely sick and atrocious. In fact, during the break, I'll show you this video that I just got from the UK of this plainclothes policeman literally pulling an American cop on this young, on this young African. He literally looks like a boy or a teenage boy, and it makes you wonder, I copy pasting, because I read somewhere that actually the US, the Chicago cops had actually I think they'd gone to the UK and also to South Africa to kind of exchange notes on how to how to deal with us. I mean, come on, let's not be, but those are stories for other days. So they said, because a lot of these Afro-Europeans, now they're claiming the Afro-Europeans have actually, they continue to suffer. We've seen a lot of discrimination, especially with the huge Muslim influx into Europe right now. The traditional African, the ones who have been there longer, kind of get caught up in that. Anyway, we'll see what happens. What do you guys think? This is unprecedented. And the resolution was actually drawn by this British Labour member of the European Parliament. They're called MEPs. He's called Claude Moraes. And I'm wondering, is the UK trying to create beef for the EU before they exit? Because they weren't even, if everything had gone according to the people's will, Britain wouldn't even be there right now. But, he said, so he was looking at the situation that happened with there's this Italian lady who is a member of the European Parliament right now. But before that, she was actually the very first black government minister. And she faced a lot of discrimination. I'll share details about her really inspiring story right after the break. But he was saying that he was inspired by her story to kind of to kind of bring this to Parliament. And a lot of activists are seeing this as absolutely huge that the EU has voted, I don't care what people say, the fact that the EU Parliament has called for the reparations of, on EU countries against Africans, absolutely amazing news. But when I come back, is this enough? What do we want? Because neocolonialism is very much there. Are they going to also apologize and stop being neocolonialists? We'll be right back.
Wake up, Africa!
We have had about 6 reparation march from Brixton to Parliament Square, and it has really helped to highlight and galvanize the reparation movement. It has been a movement for a long time, but it's been dormant and not much has been said. It's been there, but most conscious people would tell you that African people must get reparation. So reparation has been a part of our struggle. So the march started in 2014, instigated primarily by the Rastafari movement and other organizations, and then it was pretty much abandoned, and then it was taken over by the African Emancipation Day Reparation March Committee. So we do it on the 1st of August, because on the 1st of August was the Emancipation Day.
Yeah.
But for us, we know we're not emancipated, so we use that day as our day to demand for reparation.
Yes.
To let the world to galvanize attention on the issue of reparation globally.
Yeah.
So that is the day that we set aside to say that's Reparation Day. And we have a few demands.
Yeah.
One of the main demands is that we're demanding an all-party parliamentary commission of inquiry for truth and reparatory justice at the UK parliamentary level and at the EU level, and this commission would be to investigate the damage of enslavement and colonialism on existing Africans today. We'll look at our condition. Is there any connection to colonialism and to enslavement, and see how we can fix it if there is. So the first thing we're calling, before we even talk about money, before we talk about repatriation and anything else, we want to have a commission of inquiry to investigate, to study the problem, and also recommend how we can fix it.
So, ballpark figure, how much money do we want back?
Well, we don't tend to discuss money because we have the economists, the financial experts, all these great people that done all these mathematical equations. We will be using the experts to do the calculations about what will be a fair compensation, because reparation has 5 main pillars, and we're talking about compensation, rehabilitation, restitution, satisfaction, and guarantee of non-repetition. So it's a big package in reparation. So compensation is only one area. It's only one area, and obviously it will be in the trillions. So let me just throw that out there for anybody who are wondering if we are ducking the issue of money. We are not. Issue of money is essential to reparation, but it's not the only thing in doing reparation. The essential part of reparation is the repairing of the damage that was done to our people. Yeah. We have lost our name, we have lost our language, we have lost our culture, we have lost our identity, we have lost a sense of who we are as a people, we have lost our peoplehood, our sovereignty. You know what I'm saying? We are practically stateless as a diasporan African. So we want to repair that damage that was done. You know what I'm saying? And repair our connection to our brothers and sisters on the continent of Africa as well. So a lot of healing needs to take place, and communication and bridge building, and I like your building bridges.
I love it. Awesome.
So that's what has to be done. And I like what you're doing.
Thanks, my brother.
Because it's a part of that connection. It's a part of the healing process for us as African people. You know what I mean? And there's always this criticism that we don't see our African from the continent involved in our cause, or highlighting our cause, or communicating with us. And we're calling on our brothers and sisters from the continent, get involved in the reparation movement. Get involved in the reparation march.
Wake up, Africa!
Welcome back to Africa Watch on the Dr. Mumbi Show. My name is Dr. Mumbi Saraki. Unprecedented news coming out of the European major assembly, Parliament Assembly, European Parliament. Absolutely fantastic news, where a resolution drawn up by a British Labour MEP, Claude Moraes, has called on the EU nations to pay reparations for the atrocities they committed during European colonialism, and to also reveal, to declassify some of those files, that have been kept from the public eye, declassify the colonial archives covering the most disturbing periods of colonialism, and to issue a public apology. I'm telling you, these guys know what time it is. We may still not know what time it is, but these guys know what time it is. And what do you guys make of all these apologies? I mean, last week it was Belgium, then the Australians apologized to the Aboriginals, and all this stuff. I mean, everybody's apologized. The Germans went and apologized to, was it Namibia or Angola? I think it was, I can't even remember. I think it was Namibia. As in, we've just been seeing all these apologies coming. But I find it quite hypocritical because a lot of the exploitation is still happening. So is an apology enough? I hope our leaders just don't eat it up and take paper money like that's all we need. Because I think the only way we'll know that the apology is sincere is if we start to now see them taking stringent measures to ensure that this never happens again, that they don't need colonize us either economically, culturally, etc. And they allow Africa to be its own person. But those are stories for other days. And I want to mention this because I've been really wanting to talk about how important it is for Africans or Afro-Europeans it sounds so cheesy, but I've really wanted to stress to all my African brothers and sisters, especially the ones who are born and raised in Europe, whether you're from Belgium, whether you're in Belgium, Germany, wherever, or you got naturalized. It's time for you to step into positions of politics, and it's time for us to also, because I know one thing I realized when I was in the UK is that our people are very organized. Everyone has associations there, even if it's Zimbabweans or Kenyans or whatever. People have their organizations. So why can't we support our own? Because I even met a I spoke to a Kenyan counselor. Unfortunately, I couldn't interview her because she was, sitting for exams. But she's a Kenyan UK counselor, and she wants to move up the ladder. We saw France. Macron actually just appointed a spokesperson, from Senegal, who went there when she was 18. And now this lady, this story has really inspired me. So this lady, she's called Kienge. I'm hoping I pronounced her name right. She's Congolese, and she's the one who inspired this whole bill for reparations. And what happened is that the text of the resolution actually said, histories of injustice against Africans and people of African descent, including enslavement, forced labor, racial apartheid, massacre, genocide in the context of European colonialism and transatlantic slave trade, remain largely unrecognized and unaccounted for at an institutional level in EU states. Powerful, and they were basically saying this has to change. So this lady who has inspired this whole resolution and drive is actually a lady who goes by the name of Cecil Kienge. She's Italy's first black government minister, and now she's a member of European Parliament. And her story is really amazing. So her background: she's an eye doctor. She's of Congolese descent. She moved to Italy when she was around 18 years old, actually 19, and moved up the ladder, got into politics, and then from 2013 to 2014, she was actually the Minister of Integration, and she became Italy's very first black minister. Hey, soon, who knows, black minister. But Italy has a lot of issues with racism, and so there were so many slurs that she got, even publicly, from members of parliament, etc., questioning her heritage and everything. And she was just like, she just shrugged them off, and she actually came out and she was just like, I've seen that there's some difficulties describing me. I am Italo-Congolese and black, not colored. And she says she's so proud to be black, and that's part of her heritage, but she has, the Italian culture influenced her and the Congolese. So imagine, this is just like reverse colonialism. But why can't we see more and more of our people taking office, becoming MPs, becoming prime minister? Let's get an Obama in Europe for real, but not part of the New World Order, somebody who's a bit Pan-Africanist, because Obama's a good globalist, right? People still believe in him being this hero. It's totally crazy. So I just really, I'm inspired. And I'm inspired by Cecil Kienge. You guys need to check out her story. really strong woman. And I'm telling you, you see when Italy was calling out France for being part of the problem with racism and part of the problem with the immigration and how they were still colonizing their 14 nations, and it created a lot of friction between Italy and France. But a lot of people behind the scenes were saying that Cecil Kyenge and other minority MPs, basically black MPs in the Italian parliament, etc., they're the ones who push and agitate for this and change the narrative. So we need to, pull a James Bond, go in and wreak havoc from inside. But anyway, EU is going to pay us back. Is money going to be enough? What do you guys think? Do you accept, the apology? Apology accepted? Apology rejected? Let me know. Don't forget to like and share this video. Until next time. Mwah.